In 1775, the Continental Congress created the Chaplin Corps. Under the command of General George Washington, each soldier was required to attend worship service every Sunday. While other armies advanced on their feet, Washington's troops advanced on their knees. It's time for the Chaplin's Report with Caleb Colquitt on tactics.
Chaplin's Report this morning comes from, since it is Thanksgiving and we're going to be off for Thanksgiving tomorrow, this will be our last show of the week. But since Thanksgiving is tomorrow, I wanted to go to the Psalms, and we were actually looking at a Psalm the other day. You may remember when we started out the show, we were talking about Ronald Reagan and talking about his Thanksgiving Day message. Well, there's a verse that he cited in the very first part of his proclamation, and it actually came from Psalm 75:1, and we're going to read the first 5 verses there. We give thanks to you, O God. We give thanks, for your name is near. Men declare your wondrous works. When I select an appointed time, it is I who judge with equity. The earth and all who dwell in melt. It is I who have firmly set its pillars, Selah. I said to the boastful, do not boast, and to the wicked, do not lift up the horn. Do not lift up your horn on high. Do not speak with insolent pride. So there's a couple of really important lessons that I think come out of this verse. First of all, David starts his psalm with an admiration of God. We give thanks to you, God. We give thanks to you for your wondrous works. But what's really interesting here, and I think that there's a profound truth that goes along with this, is let's look at what wondrous works he's actually talking about. Let's look at the wondrous works that he's describing. And he speaks as God. He kind of enters into not necessarily speaking for God directly, but sort of saying this is how God would have responded to this. And speaking as God, he says, when I select an appointed time, it is I who judge with equity. The earth and all who dwell in shall melt, and it is I who have firmly set it on its pillars. So what does that mean? God's talking about judgment here. So what David is thanking God for, he's thanking him for the blessings that he gets, sure, and he's thanking him for his country and all these other things, all the things that God has provided him, which in David's case was a lot. But specifically in this psalm, what David is being thankful for is God's judgment. He's being thankful for God's wrath. And to us, that may seem a little bit weird, that you would be thankful for God's judgment, you would be thankful for him punishing the deeds of the evil. And he's saying, yes, God's justice is something to be grateful for. The fact that he goes after those who are wicked, he goes after those who defy his law, that he punishes them and makes them see the right way to do things. And whether they comply with it or not is up to them. But the point is, he does go after them, he does punish them, and he brings down the enemies of his people. And David is very grateful for that. And it's something that we should be grateful for too. You know, when you're a kid and you get a whooping, it's really hard for you to be appreciative of that whooping in the moment. You don't like it. It's obviously something that you don't care for. And so it would be easy for us to become resentful for our parents in that moment. But the truth is, I think most of us looking back at the way that we were raised, a lot of us would be grateful for a lot of the things that in the moment we didn't like, but really it was the best thing for us. And that's one thing that David is bringing up too. For those who are evil and that defy God, they are punished because God loves them, because he cares about people, because he cares about the other people that they might hurt by their bad actions. I mean, just like using the child analogy, one thing that will set a parent off, or at least should set a parent off, is when you have one of their kids attacking or harming their brother or sister. That will really get under a parent's skin. And it should. And that's exactly why God was worried about that, because from God's perspective, we're all brothers and sisters. We're all supposed to be looking out for one another, taking care of one another, and doing the best that we can to behave in such a way that brings about a godly, just society. And when people don't do that, when they take advantage of people, when they steal from others, when they do things out of envy and spite and maliciousness, that hurts God. And he punishes it because he doesn't want it to happen anymore. So it's as much as for the protection of victims as it is for his desire for them to be a better person as well. And so there's many ways, which David is pointing out, that we should be grateful for God's judgment. We should be grateful even for his wrath. And then he sort of ends this here. I say to the boastful, do not boast, and the wicked, do not lift up the horn. Do not lift up the horn on high or speak with insolent pride. What does that say there? God is saying, yes, I do these things and I punish people, but I do so because I want them to be better. I want you to take your pride away and humble yourself. I don't want you to boast. I want you to be dependent on me. And what's another message in that? That if we are humble, if we put ourselves aside and look at our blessings, we will be more grateful people. Because I'm convinced that one of the things that keeps people from bragging is humility. One of the things that keeps people from believing and thinking themselves more highly than they ought, to use the Bible's language, is because they're grateful for the things around them. They understand that the things around them were not necessarily things that they have because they're so great and because they're awesome and they acquired them. No, they got it because God allows them to have it. And they're grateful for it because of that. Because when you start looking at things around you as though they're gifts, you start becoming far more appreciative of them. When you understand that the things around you are not necessarily guaranteed and you're not going to have them just by virtue of being you, then you become more grateful for what you've been given. And that's the kind of idea that David is pushing, the kind of idea that I think Ronald Reagan saw in that psalm. And it's the same kind of idea that we should have this Thanksgiving season. That if we don't want to be arrogant people, we don't want to be wicked, we don't want to harm others, then one of the first things that we can do to help stave that off is to be grateful for what we've been given. And that will keep our pride at bay. Because if we understand that the things that we have, we're just stewards, we're just caretakers, and they're not something that have been given to us because of who we are, but because we're supposed to use them to help others, that is going to instill in us a sense of humility that will help us make better decisions in life. Stay the course, friends.